So hello and welcome everyone. Today I'm going to share one case which I suspected as an acute appendicitis. This was in a girl who was already coming to me for her PCOD problems and allergy cold problems. And on a Saturday afternoon or evening, she calls me or messages me complaining of this pain in the abdomen. Saturday being a little busy day, I completely forgot to get back to her. And by 10:30, 11 o'clock, her pain intensified, and I get a message from her father that please speak to my daughter. She is in acute pain. So around 10:30, 11 o'clock, I was reminded that she had called me and I had missed calling her. So I spoke to her around that time. And she says that she has this pain, which is located around on 2 to 3 fingers laterally on the right side from the umbilicus. And just by this location, I suspected that it could be an acute appendicitis. And I had advised her to get a sonography done the next day. She did the sonography the next day, but the medicine we had already prescribed on the same night. And because the family is a lot into homeopathy and all that, they already had some medicines at their disposal. So let us see what the report says. So the report says that it is suggestive of recurrent appendicular pathology or salpingitis, into bracket, pelvic inflammatory disease. But what was happening to her? So she says that she cannot lie on the stomach. Even bending or pressure, any kind of pressure worsens her problem. Walking is difficult. Even if there is a sneeze, that would increase her pain. Physical exertion would aggravate the pain. Any kind of warm application, warm fomentation would give relief. And also she mentioned that if she passes stools, then the pain is better for some time. Since the onset of the pain, there was some change in her physical general. That means her thirst for water had increased. So just based on these symptoms, I converted them into these modalities. Bending over worse, pressure worse, walking worse, sneezing worse, physical exertion worse, better by warm fomentation, better by passing stool, thirst for water had increased, so I had taken thirsty. So the next question was to repertorize this. And I put all these symptoms into the polarity analysis, which I will show you also later on how it goes in the software. But when I repertorized her symptoms, you see, this is the repertorial sheet that I get. And the remedy that stands out, you see the first remedy that is showing up is bryonia. I will explain to you a little bit about these columns. See, there is a column which is below the blue line, and there is a column which is below the red line. So the column below the blue line, you have the symptoms of the patient. Whatever the symptoms or the modalities that the patient has given, you use that as repertory in your repertorization. And what is the difference here in polarity analysis is you see that the symptoms below the red line are the symptoms which are the polar symptoms. Polar symptoms means symptoms which are opposite, on the opposite pole. Like for example, patient symptom is worse walking. So what the software does automatically is it will also take the opposite symptom, that is better by walking. Similarly, the patient symptom is worse by physical exertion. So it will take better by physical exertion. And that's how it will automatically keep on taking the symptoms which are polar. For example, you see there is no becoming warm. Warm fermentation, better, is not a polar symptom in this particular software. So there is no P written here. All the symptoms which have a potential to have the opposite pole in the Bonning-Hussein's repertory, they have been mentioned P against those rubrics. Hence, you see, there is one symptom which does not have a polar symptom, hence that symptom is missing. Then you see here three columns. One is the hits, the sums, and the polarity difference. The hits means that a particular remedy is covering how many symptoms from the what the patient has given. Like, for example, if you take arnica, for example, or even mercury and calcarea, you see that arnica does not cover the symptom better after stool. Hence, it has 7 hits. That means out of the 8 symptoms which the patient has, arnica is covering 7. Likewise, here, bryonia is covering 8, H.O.P.E is covering 8. In our normal repertorization, we will only have the hits and the sum. That means 8 by 27, 8 by 21, 7 by 20, 7 by 20, 8 by 18, so on and so forth. But what is the addition here is the addition of polarity difference. Now, what is polarity difference? Polarity difference is you add these grades of these symptoms which are there below the blue line, and then you subtract the symptoms which are there below the red line. So suppose if you add for bryonia the symptoms which are there below the blue line, it will give you the addition of 27. And then you minus this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you add these only the polar symptoms, then the addition will, the polarity difference will come to 19. Similarly, you see for H.O.P.E self, 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 3 is 8 plus 4, 12, 12 plus 3, 15, 15 plus 2, 17 plus 1 is 18, 18 plus 3 is 21, and then you subtract 1, 2, and 4, 21 minus 4. But here, what you see that this symptom, which is there better by becoming warm, is a non-polar symptom. So you are not entitled to take this as an addition. So if you add again these only the polar symptoms and minus these 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 4, then the difference will be 18 minus 4, that is 14. And the same thing here. The advantage with polarity analysis is that what I have learned from sir is that he says that you have to give the remedy which has the highest polarity difference. So here, even without thinking too much, you see that the difference between bryonia and H.O.P.E self is bryonia is 19, having polarity difference of 19, and H.O.P.E self is 14. Automatically, bryonia comes higher in the weightage as far as the indication or the choice of the remedy is concerned, and which is what she received. Bryonia, I think I gave her 200 or 1 ml repeatedly every 30 minutes, 3 to 4 doses, and report to me the next morning. The other advantage that polarity analysis has is that it helps to eliminate the remedies. That means you see that there are certain remedies which are covered in gray. In gray, that means those remedies are contraindicated. Now, I will explain to you what is contraindication and explain even more in detail about calculation of polarity analysis, polarity difference in the basics of the first lecture. But what it does is it helps to rule out that you cannot think of spigelia, borax, calcarea, or myrrh. The only remedy that you can think of is bryonia and H.O.P.E self, which is what she received. And then the next day, she says that she is around 40% better early in the morning at 9 o'clock. And then on Sunday, she says that at night, she says that she is 80%, 90% better. And she did not feel the need to take any painkillers. And that is how this particular remedy helped her beautifully. Within 48 hours, her complaints were down by 90%, and this only generates a lot of faith and confidence in the patient that homeopathy can help in such acute conditions also. Now, I would like to share 3 advantages of polarity analysis. The first is minimum subjectivity and maximum objectivity. What do I mean by this? Many times, a lot of time one needs to invest in understanding the meaning of the rubrics, especially of the mind. After the case, we always have to closely differentiate between similar mental rubrics, for example, anger, rage, irritability, or violence, or remorse, guilt, reproach, reprimand. So there is a lot of effort and energy, and it also needs a lot of experience on the part of a homeopath to really finely differentiate between these closely meant similar rubrics. And if we take a wrong rubric, then the chances of failure would increase. Whereas in polarity analysis, this problem does not arise, because if the patient says that she is worse by bending, she is worse by pressure, her thirst has increased, she is worse by sneezing, she is better after she passes stool, the scope of interpreting or interpretation goes down really, absolute zero. And irrespective of whatever school or approach or system of homeopathy that one is practicing, this will be uniformly common and same and taken in the similar manner, irrespective of whatever system you follow. And in whichever part of the world you go, if the patient gives you these kind of physical objective symptoms, the chances of interpretation are minimized, and hence the chances of failures are also minimized. Then the second problem or the second difficulty that we have is about case taking. The biggest challenge that happen is what questions to ask, how to go deeper, what points or symptoms to focus on. Should we include the chronic symptoms in an acute infectious case or in an acute exacerbation? All these questions are answered once you understand organon and Hahnemann's idea of disease, which is also what I'm going to share in forming the totality, what is needed. Then the third or the most common problem that you hear, the biggest problem on earth for all homeopaths was, is, and will be about potency, selection, and repetition. In polarity analysis or while using polarity analysis, you will surely solve this problem, and the practice will be full of success on consistent basis with minimum failures. I'm not saying that any system is foolproof, but the advantages that it has is minimizing subjectivity, maximum objectivity, less interpretation. It solves your problem of case taking, and most importantly, it will also solve the problem of potency, selection, and repetition, which is such a chronic and a difficult aspect in homeopathy to deal with for most of us. So I hope to see you all in 2 days' time. If you have any questions, do write it to me. I will be very happy to answer. So that is it for today.